The first thing I noticed was how quiet the neighborhood was. Too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet that greets you on a cool Saturday morning with birds and wind chimes, but the kind that hides judgment behind drawn curtains and security cameras. The kind that tells you you're being watched, even when no one's outside. The wheels of my black sedan crunched over the pristine asphalt as I pulled into the cul-de-sac. Maple Ridge Estates. A name that once promised exclusive living but now reeked of something else entirely. I'd been gone for 3 years, but every inch of this neighborhood still hummed with control, perfect lawns, same mailbox design, and HOA notices stuck to the corners of every light pole like warnings. I parked in front of a white 2-story house with blue shutters, the one my late father built with his own hands. I hadn't stepped foot here since his funeral. After he passed, the Homeowners Association had tried to buy the property for a community park extension. I refused. They'd fought it in court for months until I ruled against them under a different case name, of course. Funny thing about being a judge, you learn to keep your cards close. Now, I was back not as Judge Ethan Cole of the Fairfax County Circuit Court, but as a son visiting his father's old home. My intent was simple. Clean the property. Maybe renovate it. Maybe finally move back. But the second I stepped out of the car, I knew it wouldn't be that easy. "Excuse me," a sharp voice called out. I turned. A woman in her mid-50s stormed down the street, clutching a clipboard like it was a weapon. Perfectly coiffed hair, pearls around her neck, she screamed HOA president. "Can I help you?" I asked calmly. "This property is private," she snapped. "Residents have reported a suspicious vehicle parked here." "May I ask what business you have on this property?" I studied her face for a moment. She didn't recognize me, of course not. I'd never lived here during my judicial career. "This is my house," I said simply, unlocking the gate with a key. Her eyes narrowed. "Your house? That can't be. This home is in violation of HOA maintenance codes. The owner abandoned it years ago. We're in the process of reclaiming it for the association." I turned back to face her fully. "Reclaiming it? On what grounds?" "Neglect, unpaid community fees, and dereliction of property. Section 14C of our bylaws." I almost laughed. "Ma'am, I've been paying property taxes directly to Fairfax County every year. This land doesn't belong to your HOA. It's grandfathered out of your jurisdiction, wasn't that settled 3 years ago?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "That case was complicated." "Yes," I said softly, stepping closer, "and I was the one who ruled on it." The color drained from her face. "Judge Cole," she whispered. "Just Ethan today," I said. "But yes, that's me." For a long, tense moment, neither of us spoke. The cicadas filled the silence. Then she straightened her shoulders, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well, judge or not, the HOA has authority to ensure community standards are met. You can't simply waltz in here and..." I raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting I'm trespassing on my own property?" Her expression faltered. "If you can provide proof of ownership, then..." "Already filed in county records," I interrupted. "You can check it yourself. Case reference number, FC19283. My signature's on the ruling." Her clipboard trembled slightly. "I'll be in touch," she said, retreating a step before turning away. "You'll be hearing from the board soon." "I'm counting on it," I said quietly. As she disappeared down the street, I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The scent of dust and cedar filled the air. My father's old tools hung neatly in the garage, untouched since the day he died. The sunlight filtered through dusty blinds, scattering faint patterns across the floorboards. I exhaled slowly. "Welcome home, Dad." That evening, as I unpacked a few boxes, a police cruiser rolled up outside. 2 officers stepped out, hands resting near their holsters. "Evening, sir," one said cautiously. "We got a report of a break-in at this address." "Are you the homeowner?" I showed them my driver's license and deed copy. "Yes," I said evenly. Though I'm guessing the caller didn't mention that. The older officer exchanged a look with his partner. That call came from the HOA president, right? Probably. The younger officer chuckled. They've been pulling stunts like this all year. You'd think they owned the county. I smiled faintly. They think they do. When they left, the quiet returned, but this time, it wasn't peaceful. It felt like the calm before something much larger. That night, I stood on the porch, watching porch lights flicker across identical houses. Shadows moved behind curtains, gossip carried on the wind. I could feel it, the war had just begun. The letter came 3 days later. It was printed on heavy ivory paper, sealed with the HOA's crest in pretentious gold ink. I found it folded neatly under my front door early that morning, delivered by hand, no envelope, no postage. The kind of message meant to intimidate, not communicate. Notice of violation, Maple Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. Property, 1178, Maple Ridge Lane. Owner, Ethan J. Cole. You are hereby notified that your property is in violation of multiple community standards, including unauthorized occupancy of an unregistered dwelling, lawn maintenance neglect, structural deterioration, Section 8B, unapproved modifications to property exterior. Failure to comply within 72 hours will result in legal action and potential forfeiture of property rights under the HOA Charter. Signed, Caroline Thatcher, President, Maple Ridge HOA. I let the paper fall to the counter and poured myself a cup of coffee. Through the kitchen window, I could see her, Caroline Thatcher, standing across the street with 2 other board members. They weren't even subtle about it, whispering and watching me like I was some kind of criminal. I took a slow sip and smiled. So it begins. That afternoon, I went to the Fairfax County Courthouse. Not as Judge Cole, but as a homeowner filing a motion for declaratory relief. It was amusing, really, to stand on the other side of the counter. The clerk recognized me instantly. Judge Cole? What brings you down here? She asked, eyes widening. Personal business, I said lightly. Just need to file this. She scanned the documents and smirked. HOA trouble? Something like that. When I returned home, there was already a crowd at the gate. Caroline was there again, this time with a man in a gray suit and a county police officer. The officer looked uncomfortable, like he'd been dragged into something petty but had no choice. Judge, he started. Mr. Cole, Caroline interrupted sharply, this property is under HOA investigation. You've ignored multiple notices. I've lived here for 72 hours, Mrs. Thatcher. That was your first notice. Her nostrils flared. You're in violation of multiple codes. Codes that don't apply to me, I said calmly. This property predates your charter by 12 years. It was legally excluded from HOA jurisdiction under Cole v. Maple Ridge Estates, docket number 20831. The lawyer beside her shifted awkwardly. That case was specific to prior ownership. Which has not changed, I said, handing him a printed copy of the title deed. My name was on the deed then. It's on it now. Caroline's eyes flashed with something darker than irritation. You think you can bully us with your title? You can't sit on both sides of the bench, Judge Cole. I met her gaze evenly. I don't have to. The law does that for me. The officer cleared his throat. Ma'am, unless you have a warrant or a court order, you can't be here. This is private property. Caroline's jaw tightened. She turned sharply, signaling her entourage to leave. This isn't over. Oh, I'm counting on it, I said softly. Over the next week, the harassment escalated. Every morning I woke to a new notice pinned to the fence. Fines for grass height. Complaints about improper garbage disposal. Even citations for excessive exterior lighting, despite my porch bulb being the same soft glow as every other house on the block. Then came the petty sabotage, garbage scattered across my yard, my mailbox dented, anonymous notes slid under the door. You don't belong here. Sell or face the consequences. I didn't call the police. I didn't yell. I documented everything, every fine, every visit, every trespass. I knew how these things played out. They relied on fear and exhaustion. Most homeowners eventually folded. But I wasn't most homeowners. One evening, as I sat reading on the porch, a car slowed to a stop in front of my gate. A young man stepped out, nervous, mid-30s, wearing a cheap HOA polo shirt. "Mr. Cole," he said, glancing around like he didn't want to be seen talking to me. "My name's Tyler. I work for the HOA Maintenance Committee." "Evening, Tyler. You look uneasy." He hesitated. "I shouldn't even be here. I just wanted to warn you. Mrs. Thatcher's planning to file a criminal complaint. Claims you forged the property title." I set my book down slowly. "Forged it?" He nodded. "She said she's got someone on the county board who can push it through. She's trying to have you arrested for trespassing on your own property." I couldn't help but laugh softly. "She really doesn't know who I am, does she?" He frowned. "Sir?" "Never mind. Thank you, Tyler. You did the right thing." He gave a nervous nod and hurried back to his car. That night, the storm rolled in. Thunder rumbled over Maple Ridge, and rain lashed against the windows. I sat in my study, the glow of my laptop casting long shadows across the walls. I reviewed the legal precedents, my earlier rulings, every loophole Caroline had exploited to control her neighbors. They'd built an empire on intimidation and technicalities. But they'd also built it on illegal amendments, fees that exceeded their charter, bylaws passed without proper homeowner votes, fraudulent filings. By midnight, I had a 47-page report drafted and ready to file. Not as a complaint. As a motion for dissolution. The HOA thought they were about to destroy me with legal traps and false charges. What they didn't realize was that they'd just picked a fight with the one man who could bring their entire empire crashing down with a stroke of a pen. The next morning, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find 2 county officers. "Ethan Cole," one asked. "Yes?" "You're under arrest for criminal trespassing and fraud." Caroline Thatcher stood behind them, a smug smile spreading across her face as the handcuffs clicked. "Guess the law doesn't protect everyone," she said sweetly. I met her eyes, unflinching. "You're right," I replied evenly. "It doesn't protect criminals pretending to enforce it." Her smile faltered. As they led me to the cruiser, rain still dripping from the eaves, I glanced back at the house. My father's house. My house. This was exactly what I needed. Because now, every shred of their corruption would go on record under my own name. And soon, Maple Ridge would finally answer for everything it had buried beneath its perfect lawns and white fences. Rain poured down the morning of the hearing, turning the Fairfax courthouse steps into silver rivers of reflection. Reporters gathered under umbrellas, cameras flashing as the county's most talked about case reached its climax. Fairfax County versus Ethan J. Cole. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had presided in this very courtroom hundreds of times. But today, I sat at the defense table. Calm. Composed. Watching the machine of justice grind forward, slowly, inevitably, beautifully. Across the aisle sat Caroline Thatcher and her attorney, Marvin Knox, a smug, sharp-featured man who seemed to mistake arrogance for competence. Caroline herself looked polished as ever, pearls, tailored suit, a smile that screamed victory before the battle even began. She thought she'd already won. She didn't know that every move she'd made had been anticipated, documented, and prepared for. The judge, Judge Aidan Mercer, entered the room, a longtime colleague and friend. He gave me a faint look of confusion before schooling his features into neutrality. "Court is now in session," he said. "We're here for case number 20945, the People vs. Ethan J. E. Cole, charges of criminal trespassing and forgery of property documents." Caroline's lawyer stood first. "Your Honor, the evidence is clear. Mr. Cole entered a property governed by the Maple Ridge Homeowners Association, of which he is not an active member. He forged title documents to assert false ownership." "Objection," my attorney interrupted smoothly. The defense has irrefutable proof that Mr. Cole is the legal and continuous owner of said property, with deeds recorded and verified by county archives.
Then why, Knox said, pacing, did the HOA's own investigation find discrepancies in those records?
I smiled faintly. Because, counselor, I said, standing slowly, your client created them.
Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Judge Mercer raised an eyebrow. Mr. Cole, you're aware you're not currently acting in a judicial capacity here?
Understood, Your Honor, I replied.
But I request permission to present supplemental evidence. He nodded. Proceed.
I handed the clerk a thick binder. Inside were certified county documents, notarized statements, and time-stamped correspondence, each one exposing years of manipulation by the HOA's leadership.
Exhibit A, I said.
A falsified annexation map submitted by the Maple Ridge HOA to the County Zoning Board in 2019. The HOA expanded its jurisdiction illegally, including properties, like mine, that were never part of the original charter.
Knox shifted uneasily.
Caroline's fingers twitched.
Exhibit B, I continued. Unauthorized fee increases approved without quorum votes.
Exhibit C, a recorded conversation between Mrs. Thatcher and County Clerk Samuel Price, in which she offers campaign donations in exchange for expedited filings. The courtroom erupted in whispers.
Caroline's face turned ashen.
Judge Mercer leaned forward.
Are these recordings authenticated?
By the county's own forensic department, I said. And the Department of Justice's regional office has been notified. The HOA has operated as an illegal private entity for years, extorting residents, forging documents, and coercing homeowners under threat of foreclosure.
Knox stammered, Your Honor, this is absurd. None of this.
Enough, Mercer said sharply.
He turned to Caroline. Mrs. Thatcher, do you have a response to these allegations?
She opened her mouth, but no sound came. Her confidence had evaporated, leaving only panic in its wake.
Mrs. Thatcher, I said quietly, you've spent years terrorizing this community, hiding behind bylaws in fine print. You thought the law was your weapon. You never understood it was your mirror.
Her jaw trembled.
You set me up. I gave you a chance to stop, I replied. You chose to escalate. By noon, the courtroom was silent except for the shuffle of papers.
Judge Mercer reviewed the evidence for nearly 30 minutes before returning to the bench. In my years on the bench, he began slowly, I've never seen an abuse of authority quite like this.
The Maple Ridge HOA acted well beyond its lawful bounds.
Effective immediately, this association is hereby dissolved under state statute.
All fines, fees, and liens imposed by the HOA are voided. Assets will be frozen pending criminal investigation.
He looked directly at Caroline. As for you, Mrs. Thatcher, I'm referring your conduct to the Commonwealth's attorney for charges of fraud, bribery, and perjury.
The gavel struck like thunder. Caroline's pearl necklace snapped as she stood too fast, scattering beads across the courtroom floor.
This isn't over, she hissed, but the deputies were already moving toward her.
Oh, it's over, I said quietly.
You just never thought justice would look like this. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air smelled like wet pavement enclosure.
Reporters swarmed as I descended the courthouse steps, but I said nothing. There was nothing left to say.
The next day, I returned to Maple Ridge. For the first time in years, the neighborhood felt alive.
Lawns untrimmed. Kids laughing in driveways.
People smiling freely, unburdened by the invisible leash of the HOA. Tyler, the young maintenance worker, was waiting near my gate.
They're really gone, he asked.
Dissolved, I confirmed.
State's taking over the investigation. You should be proud you helped start this.
He grinned, relief washing over his face.
Guess you showed them who's boss. I chuckled softly. No, Tyler. The law did.
That evening, I sat on the porch of my father's old house. The sun dipped low, turning the sky to gold. The neighborhood was quiet again, but this time, it was the good kind of quiet. The kind filled with peace, not fear. I ran my hand over the railing he'd built, the wood warm beneath my palm. "It's done, Dad," I whispered. "They can't touch this place again." A gentle breeze swept through the trees, rustling the leaves like an approving sigh. For the first time since I'd returned, I allowed myself to close my eyes and really breathe. No more notices. No more threats. No more pretending justice was blind. Sometimes, the law didn't need a gavel. Sometimes, it just needed a man willing to stand his ground. And this time, Maple Ridge finally learned what real judgment looked like.